I don't have a middle name. My parents were too poor. They couldn't afford one. I grew up in the Bronx on 2275 Davidson Avenue. And if you go there, you'll see on the house, the apartment building, it says, Dolph Schayes lived here. I spray painted it myself. I kept growing and growing and growing. Must have been the gefilte fish that I was eating or something. And so I was able to develop the pure game of basketball, which they call schoolyard ball. I played outside to learn how to dribble and pass, learned how to really play basketball. And then when I got drafted by Syracuse, I thought I was going to the edge of the Arctic Circle. So I was paid $7,500 to play basketball, to play a game you liked. I mean, this was crazy. They're going to pay me to play a game? We were like the dead-end kids. We were the guys who, if we were 10 points behind in the fourth quarter, we'd say, we're going to win. In those years, professional basketball had a reputation of being rough and tough and aggressive and fighting and all that stuff. I have a ring, I wear my championship ring. No matter where I go, people will look at it and say, well, you were on an NBA championship? Wow. Of course, they never buy me a drink or lunch, but they say you're big time stuff. The fans, they just adopted every player on the team. You were a big shot.
And one of those fans was 15-year-old Rick Snyder, one of the Nationals' youngest season ticket holders.
He lived across from Thorndon Park on Ostrom Avenue, and my friend Jim Honig and I would sit on the curb across from his house waiting for him to come out so we could see him.
Dolph was the key player on the Nats, and to us it was always important that Dolph was Jewish.
On a cold Syracuse winter night in 1951, Dolph met his future wife, Naomi Gross.
And when we were introduced, a spark flew from her finger to mine, a static part of electricity. It almost knocked me over. And you know, when you're a ball player, you're traveling all the time, and she really brought up the kids, and I was lucky to have a wonderful wife.
Dolph Schayes passed away on December 10th, 2015, but will always be a presence in central New York, whether it's at the JCC's Schayes Family Gymnasium or the Schayes Family Lounge at Temple Concord. But his greatest legacy will always be at the top of the key in the center of our hearts.
I remember when he asked me to dance and my face was in his belt buckle.
We're very grateful to the whole family for what they've done for the town.
And of course, I thought Dolph Schayes was the greatest. I tried to mimic shooting his two-handed set shot.
He was Jewish and he lived in our community, and it was really special to have him here.
Dolph was an amazing basketball player. He's in the NBA Hall of Fame, the 50 greatest of all time list. But the truth is, that's only a tiny piece of who Dolph is. Dolph, the person, is every bit the Hall of Fame human being that he was as a basketball player.
He said, come give me a hug. And I said, just a minute. And I pulled a chair and I stood on top of the chair. And then I could hug him.
This is schoolhouse number 8, It is a one-room schoolhouse that we bring the students to experience life 100 years ago.
We are going to get ready to walk down to the schoolhouse. We're going to walk with a partner. We're going to stay on the sidewalk.
Third grade students are actually divided into 3 grade levels, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Once they hear the school bell ring, they go back in time. They're time travelers.
The grassroots of our country started with education in one-room schoolhouses.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
So all the history is right here.
The land I love, the homeland, the free and the brave. Every heart beats true under red, white, and blue, where there's never a boast or brag. But should all acquaintance be forgot?
Visitors will find their grandparents' pictures, they'll find their relatives.
When you enter the schoolhouse, we're going to be time travelers, okay? This is your first day of school in the year 1900. You've had a wonderful summer vacation, but when you hear that bell ring, we're going to start with the girls' row to come in single file.
Good morning to you. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning. And you are?
Landon.
Nice to meet you, Landon.
We're all in our places with bright, shining faces. Good morning.
Good morning. And you are?
Logan.
Nice to meet you, Logan.
Oh, this is the way to start a great day.
A lot of genealogists come in and want to see their name, the great-great-grandparents' name in writing. So we have many of those records.
It's a one-room schoolhouse and there's a bunch of different grades in one room.
On this blackboard, I have written your assignments for the day.
Like you have to stand up and talk and you can't like walk up to the teacher.
Is just to copy the Pledge of Allegiance in your best round hand writing.
It's harder.
Who can tell me what the word pledge means? Scarlett, please rise.
Promise.
It means a promise, okay.
To the Republic.
A nation that elects their leaders.
It starts out with independent activities that each grade level works on at their desks.
Back then you learned a lot more.
Well, one advantage would be that the older students in the older grades could help out the students in the younger grades because there usually was one school teacher in charge of several grade levels. So she had to multitask in order to make sure every child was taken care of.
No one's talking to each other, so it's kind of easier to concentrate. You have to try to figure it out. You can't just like mosey around. You have to try to figure it out.
I'm going to give us about 5 minutes and we'll take a short recess. Go!
We got to learn how they learned in the 1900s, and we got to play with the toys they would play with at recess.
It's the second most popular artifact at the museums. There's 3 different size holes because you have students that range from 1st grade up to 8th grade.
Did you get a good look in there? Now who wants to go in and sit down? Would you like to do that? No? So does anybody want to sit down?
No. Sure. Oh, I think this is massage.
There are 3 different size holes there.
Disgusting.
Let me see if it's massage.
Would you get slivers if you sat?
No, you really didn't get slivers.
I would just stay away from this. It's cool. I like it.
So do you think you'd like to use this kind of toilet?
No. Proper toilet. It can be really fun learning what used to happen and how things worked.
You'll see jackknives. Back in those days, every boy carried a jackknife.
It's actually really good for you to learn how they lived, learned, and just played, and all the games and stuff.
Ring around the rosy, pocket full
You know, many times you've heard the saying that to know where you're going, you need to know where you've been. And so this is where we've been.
Nick, please rise. 400.
It's an illustration that they did indeed educate students well.
Well, I need someone to tell me who is Theodore Roosevelt. Carissa.
He's the youngest president.
Students in one-room schoolhouses went on to be presidents of companies, Pratt and Lambert being one of them. A graduate of the North Collins went on to become Attorney General in New York State. So the list is endless in terms of people that went on to be very, very successful.
Good job. Let's read it together, everyone. 6,910.
This is an important element of our history and our culture back then. And so that's why this museum exists.
Oh, this is the way to end a good day.
Now this is Iron Gold ink. I teach what we call examination and documentation, and what that involves is learning to work with technical photography, scientific photography, to document works of art.
I'll also do ultraviolet radiation and infrared photography.
With the light source behind the painting, it appeared to be what could be a roof of a house, and so the painting was then X-radiographed. There is a second composition below the surface of the painting. You don't expect it and you have no idea what you're going to find, so it's a really cool discovery.
What we try to do in terms of the basic photography is try to teach students how to be photographers. First, how to understand lighting, how to know how to see. Also, a good part of it is dealing with examining the work of art with radiation that's outside of the visible spectrum. So the students get an enormous amount of experience doing this. We treat at least 100 or more objects a year.
Very often when training is done in infrared imaging, for example, it's done in the context of paintings conservation courses. Our unique 2-year documentation curriculum is designed to make students see that infrared or any of the other techniques they are taught can be applied equally well to all the different kinds of artifacts they work on.
Where you're seeing the black, that's where the image material is lost. So I will in-paint it.
I'm going to listen to you. You're going to watch the light and tell me when you're ready.
Ready. Shoot.
They come out, students are really highly skilled, technical photographers. It's probably the most gratifying thing you can imagine, to know that you played a part in having someone be able to go through life working at something they love to do, and then anything that comes their way where they feel challenged, they know how to solve that problem.
If I went out into the workforce not knowing this, I think I would be at a great disadvantage. So this is definitely a help.